Okay, it's going to be a Ring of Honor Classic review. This is going to be a review of the 3rd anniversary celebration, part 2. This show took place on February 25th, 2005, from Dayton, Ohio. So this is just going to lock in on part 2. So trying to think back, the 3rd anniversary celebration. So they did 3 shows. I think they did a show the weekend before. The main event was actually Austin Aries, Colt, Cabana, the steel cage. That's when Aries does the suicide sacrifice, to win that match and retain the title. So I think that happened the week before. And then they do a double shot in Dayton and Chicago the next weekend. But I'll tell you, man, this show, this part 2 show, I think just looking at it, just looking at the card, you got to say to yourself, wow, this is just a loaded show. You know, the Ring of Honor title is not on the line. So I think that probably hurt the show in terms of, the way people felt about it feeling important or whatever. But, the main reason I wanted to review it, this might be the only show in ROH history where you get Nigel McGuinness, CM Punk, Samoa Joe, Bryan Danielson, Austin Aries, and AJ Styles. I think this might be the only time he got it, because you got to remember, during the summer of Punk, Danielson was not there. Nigel wasn't there throughout a lot of Punk's, early heyday. He was still trying to make a name for himself at the time. So yeah, I mean, it's really a unique show. AJ actually does get to wrestle Jimmy Rave in the main event. It's like a one-night only thing. I don't know how this happened. He's really tight with Jimmy Rave. They came up together at NWA Wildside. So I think that had a lot to do with it. But yeah, just a consistent show. I think if you go into the show expecting anything to be great, you'll be a little bit disappointed. But you got top level talent here. Not to mention you got James Gibson, once again, proving he's the MVP of ROH, getting another standing ovation in a match against Spanky. So yeah, I think it's a loaded show. It's not as good as Mayhem. I think it definitely kind of has that format of just consistency and quality. But yeah, I mean, if you were to ask me, what's my Mount Rushmore for ROH, this has it. You got Bryan Danielson, Samoa Joe, CM Punk, and I'm going to go with Nigel McGuinness in that 4th spot. I think, Nigel was that good. I think he's that talented. I think he was that valuable to ROH. He has the Ring of Honor title reign to prove it. And I know a lot of people would put, the Briscoes in that 4th spot. But, there's only 4 spots on a Mount Rushmore. I mean, if you're going to have to go with Jay or Mark, you probably go with Jay. But yeah, that 4th spot, I would give it to Nigel. I mean, you could argue it's the Briscoes if you want to put both Briscoes in there. I think Austin Aries would be my 6th pick. But yeah, I mean, this is one of the few shows that, has the Mount Rushmore of ROH on it. So, and then not to mention, the Mr. TNA AJ Styles coming back to Ring of Honor in the main event, a one-time only thing. I guess at the time they still hadn't really recovered from the scandal yet. Christopher Daniels is missing from this show. So, I mean, if he was on this show, it would have been really loaded. But hey, man, let's get right down to it. First match tonight, you have Fast Eddie, teaming up with Maff Sydal to take on the Ring Crew of Dunn and Marcos. So I thought this was good. I thought this was fun action. At the time, Maff Sydal he's still trying to prove himself. I mean, he's wrestling Delirious. He's wrestling the Ring Crew. And, yeah, it was good stuff. I thought he looked good out there. Him and Fast Eddie actually get the win, but Fast Eddie actually turns on Maff Sydal. At the time, Fast Eddie's actually part of the embassy. So, Maff Sydal gets turned on there. But, yeah, I mean, I think at the time, Sydal was still one of these guys that, wasn't being brought in on each and every show. But, I think as the year progressed, he became a mainstay with Generation X. But, next up you have Homicide taking on Puma. A good matchup right here. Puma's a hell of a talent. You got to see him wrestle, in TNA throughout the years at a lot of those international X matches. I think the World Cup at Sacrifice, you got to see Puma. But yeah, Homicide and Puma, it was good. I thought this was good stuff. Homicide ends up winning in 10 minutes with the cat mutilation, just to kind of rub it in Danielson's face. This was during the time when Homicide and Danielson were just going at it each and every show. Even if they weren't working with each other, the shows would just end with them fighting in the parking lot. And that's how this show ended right here, with just Homicide and Danielson just, going at it. This was during the best of 5 series. Next we got Colt Cabana and Nigel McGuinness. Beautiful stuff, awesome stuff. During this match, I must have said like 3 times, almost like Apollo Creed in Rocky 3 when he was training Rocky. I just kept on saying, oh my God, very nice. Like I said that like 3 times during this match. Just, they were just so good. It's still a babyface versus babyface match at the time. This is before Nigel turned on Colt. And yeah, Cabana out-wrestled him here. This is why Nigel turned heel in Manhattan Mayhem. But yeah, I mean, they just really did a good job of, blending in, the European style, the British style with comedy. And this just had some fun moments as well. And when I was watching this back, man, it's a shame that Cabana never got the chance to wrestle Eugene, because I think Eugene and Cabana could have worked this style, very nice. I mean, they kind of did some of the same stuff. I think Colt and Eugene did they kind of reenacted the dog, one leg up pissing thing. They've done that time and time again. But not to take away from this match right here, just so many good reversals, just very fluid. Just some tremendous, wrist locks and takedowns, from Nigel. That divorce court spot came off great. But yeah, Cabana was able to out-wrestle him with a nice little roll-up here. And, they do a good times, great memories, to end this thing, to end the show, which was Cabana's talk show. But yeah, down the road, this would, signal the Nigel, heel turn. I think when I'm looking at this show too, I say to myself, man, like Nigel and Punk really never got to touch, at least in Ring of Honor. And, that's probably one of the reasons why. Nigel's still a babyface at this time. So was Punk. When Punk was a heel during the summer, so was Nigel. So, maybe that's why they just never got to wrestle. But yeah, I would have loved to have seen Punk and Nigel, wrestle during the summer of Punk. All right, next up, Dan Maff and BJ Whitmer defend the belts against Delirious and Jimmy Jacobs for the ROH tag team titles. Good stuff here. This is before Jimmy and BJ started teaming together, but they would team together, a couple months later, because they teamed in Manhattan Mayhem. But at this time, they were still going at it. Jimmy took a pounding here. He did some incredible stuff. There is a awesome spot here that, is probably the spot of the night, believe it or not. And I know this match is going to get overshadowed because of the star power. But man, BJ goes for like a power bomb off the top rope. Jimmy's able to counter into a Hurricanrana. And then, Delirious hits the shadows over Hill on BJ when he gets up. It's an incredible spot. But yeah, Jimmy took a pounding here. They just threw him all over the building. Maff and Whitmer retained. They come out to that Nas Thief's theme instrumental. That was their theme music at the time. Next up, we have Spanky taking on James Gibson. The two guys that were just, not too recently removed from the Cruiserweight division on SmackDown. This is great stuff, man. Gabe was good on commentary here. And you got to keep in mind, we're coming off of No Way Out 2005 where they did that awful 3 diva segment thing hosted by Tori and Dawn Marie, which was just too much. And Gabe even kind of bashed it, said, there's no cutting the diva segments. There's no, guys in the back telling them to water down their style. They're able to wrestle here and do what they can do and have wrestling freedom. And there's like a ton of SmackDown sucks chants, while they're in the ring. And they kind of took it as a sign of respect. Basically, the crowd chanting SmackDown sucks is kind of symbolic of, that they were underutilized and underappreciated in the WWE, especially with Gibson, just recently being fired. But, that had to do with a health insurance reason. But yeah, I know we're kind of in the John Cena heel mode. So if anyone wants to check out a great heel Cena promo, I would definitely recommend checking out the one with Spanky. I think Cena's got like a Cubs jersey on, and Spanky actually does the when I say Cena, you say sucks, and then you get the Cena sucks. So definitely check that out. I thought it was great, but yeah, Spanky, I think at the time he might have been morphing back and forth from WWE to ROH, but I'm not sure about that. But this is good stuff. The two former friends from SmackDown going at it in ROH. Just great stuff between them. Gibson got a standing ovation out there. He just put on a wrestling clinic. He just knows what he's doing in the ring. Some of his neck breakers and some of his transitions into the front face guillotine face lock were just flawless. The highlight of this match Spanky goes for like a sliced bread. Gibson is able to counter it into a neck breaker. It was sweet as hell. And give Spanky credit, man. He was able to do some good submission stuff here. Gibson was able to counter an arm bar into the front face guillotine face lock for the finish. Awesome, awesome match right here. This might be the match of the night. I got to say, Gibson got the hardest, or the loudest standing ovation. And there was a lot of standing ovations. I mean, AJ got one, Punk got one, but I would have to say Gibson, once again, it's almost like every single time he wrestled, he blew people away by just how good he was. He was like, all right, we knew you were good, but did we know you were this good? So there we go with that. Next up, we have a women's four-corner survival. Daisy Hayes goes over Lacey, Tracy Brooks, and Allison Danger. I thought this had some good moments to it. I didn't think it was bad, but, this is one of those women's matches where I can't say that, oh, okay, they should have gotten another 5 minutes. I thought the length was fine, because you definitely had some weak links out there. But Daisy does go over. I think this is before she joins the embassy. I like all these girls, but it was okay for what it was. Next up, we got CM Punk taking on Alex Shelley. Most people are going to think this is the match of the night. I think it probably was. I think I think Punk and Shelley made the top 100 Ring of Honor matches of the first 100 shows on the forum. I believe they did. There's a lot of history here. One of the reasons why Punk turned babyface was because of Alex Shelley and Generation Next. And yeah, Punk is almost being like a leader and kind of doing the locker room leader thing, to Shelley. And he's like, you think that handshake is good enough, for you acting like an asshole all these months? You're going to have to prove a lot more than that. So, Punk is really all over Shelley. And the whole thing ends with him saying, he's sorry and he's trying. This ends with Shelley just saying he's sorry, which, I think over the years you come to learn, when you have someone saying they're sorry that many times, it's almost like a sign of weakness. So yeah, I mean, really, this whole thing really kind of foreshadowed, Shelley turning heel and joining the embassy and him buying in. But I thought this was good stuff. It's a little bit slow paced. They get a lot of time out there. They go 22 minutes. So if you haven't seen this match yet, Punk, got into tremendous shape at this time. This really felt like an audition for the WWE. He got rid of the basketball shorts. I don't know what it is. I guess when people see people with, basketball shorts on, they're considered lowlives. I have more basketball shorts than anybody, so I don't know. I think Punk really, wanted to clean up his act a little bit. I think he wanted to get some attention. They were even talking about his diet and his training on commentary, how he doesn't eat carbs. And really, like, if Punk was able to kind of maintain, this physique, once he got to ECW, I think he would have had an easier time. I just remember a lot of people being very critical of the way Punk looked, especially Cabana was one of them, and I think Cena was another one, because I think Punk was he felt like he had to put on like a lot of muscle, and it's tough. Not everybody could be Super Cena and, put on a lot of muscle without getting fat. So, but yeah, Punk at this time, he just looked toned and ripped, and he looked good. I mean, and he wrestled a very, I would definitely say this is a very unsloppy match from Punk. I know that was one of Punk's biggest criticisms, was that he was a little bit sloppy, during the early days of ROH. But it was just nice and clean, very submission oriented. You just had some good stuff here. You just had some really good submission work with Shelley doing the Border City stretch, Punk countering it into the Anaconda Vice for the finish. And then you even had some good interceptions from Shelley, countering the Pepsi plunge, backdropping that. I thought that was cool. And, Shelley actually caught Punk on the crossbody with the knee to the gut a couple of times. So you just Shelley is good at this stuff. It's a little bit slow paced for some people. Neither guy was able to hit their big money moves, whether it be Shelley with the shell shock or Punk with the Pepsi plunge. But yeah, I mean, the submission work was good, and you did get to see some good selling. I thought it was a pretty damn good match. I think, it's probably the match of the night, but I'm not gonna lie to you and say that this was it blew it out of the water, because it really didn't. But hey, next up we got Samoa Joe and Bryan Danielson teaming up together to take on Austin Aries and Jack Evans of Generation Next. All right, so Aries is actually going to defend the belt against Joe the next night in Chicago, and I was thinking about this. I think they really rushed the Joe and Aries rematch. I think it's a little bit too unrealistic for Aries to beat Joe 2 times in a row that soon. I think they probably could have saved it until maybe Manhattan Mayhem. Maybe you save it for that time when they did that incredible triple shot in May. But hey, so bottom line is, I think the Joe and Aries match from night 3 of this celebration is extremely underrated. Somehow, some way, Aries is able to beat Joe. I feel like he did it with the Bret Hart on Roddy Piper finish. I feel like that was the finish. I have to go back and watch it to be 100% accurate. But yeah, you get Joe and Danielson teaming up together, the Dream Team. They've teamed together before against the Briscoes. This is a little bit frustrating to watch. I was expecting a better matchup here. This is just kind of a night off for Aries. He had to defend the belt twice during the celebration. This is the one time that he doesn't defend it. And, all the attention was on Jack Evans here. They started off kind of like trying to outdance Jack. So, when you see great wrestlers like this in a match, you would expect it to be serious. But you know how Jack Evans does the breakdancing and the "you got served." So it starts off with Joe and Danielson trying to outdance Jack, and then they just stretch the shit out of him, and they just try to humiliate him. Joe's offense on Jack Evans looked incredible here, especially the burning hammer into the pin. The transition on that was beautiful. They actually do this spot where Danielson has Jack in a surfboard, and Joe does the ole ole kick. That was probably one of the best spots of the night. That got a holy shit reaction. Danielson actually does the airplane spin to Aries to kind of put him away. Aries tried to be like a good soldier here and save this thing a couple times, but he was just never able to do it. And Joe and Danielson just bullied the shit out of Jack Evans. It was a good match. It was fun. I just can't say it was great. And then the main event, we have Jimmy Rave taking on AJ Styles. So Jimmy comes out in the embassy robe, which you could actually see on the cover. I believe that's the same robe that we just saw, Ricochet steal from Nana and Swerve. So I believe Jimmy and AJ, started because Jimmy started using the Styles Clash. So if you start using the Styles Clash today, like Ospreay's doing, it's almost like a sign of respect. But at this time, AJ's still trying to prove himself. So it's almost like a sign of disrespect. Plus that, they know each other from NWA Wildside. So it only makes sense. And, give AJ credit. He made the exception. I think he must have fought with TNA to let him come back to ROH for this big match with Jimmy Rave. And it was good. I think this match gets a lot of shit because of the finish. Nana actually comes out with like this peppermint spray. He's trying to kill like some stench, and like even Carrie Silkin's like, "What the fuck are you doing?" But obviously he was going to play into the finish. But I thought this was good stuff, man. No matter how you feel about this finish, obviously this is just a setup match to hopefully down the road, get the relationship with TNA better to the point where we could finally, get a big blow-off match between Jimmy and AJ, which eventually you did at Glory Honor 4, which was a Styles Clash match. But I thought this was good, man. I think AJ busted his ass here. He showed the intensity. He showed like a lot of hatred towards Jimmy Rave here. He really did. He was incredibly stiff. He was trying to get Rave to bring it, and he actually called him a faggot here. And it's not the first time. AJ uses the word faggot. He used the word faggot a lot, like in the early days. But when I look back on it now, when I was a kid growing up, when people would say, the F word, the faggot word, I never really interpreted it as the guy being gay. It's just something people just used to say. Like I had a friend that hated RVD, and he used to say, "I hate RVD, he's a fag." But did I interpret it as, oh, RVD likes guys and he's gay? I never thought of it like that, but it's just something that people say. So AJ was just a little bit of a hothead here. It was good. They brawled all over the crowd, into the bleachers. But once they got back into the ring, it was incredibly stiff. AJ hit a stiff-ass lariat on Jimmy. The crowd was even chanting, "That was stiff." AJ did some beautiful, just, handspring. The handspring Pele, when he ricochets off the ropes, came off great. Even Jimmy hit a beautiful Shining Wizard. The match is going great. It really was. Jimmy did kind of slow down the match a couple of times, but he did have some impressive moments, though. Even the gonorrhea spot, even before Jimmy hits the gonorrhea, the whole crowd actually said gonorrhea before he hit it. So Jimmy was definitely over here. So give him credit. the ending comes, AJ's actually like yelling at Nana. Then all of a sudden, Jimmy has the peppermint spray and sprays AJ, rolls him up to get the victory there. So it's kind of a crappy finish. The embassy comes out, they gang up on AJ. Punk actually saves AJ Styles, who he actually mentioned AJ couldn't look him in the eye when they were, negotiating about whose side to choose on with the scandal and everything. But ironically, Punk comes to save AJ, and this ends with AJ giving the Styles class to Fast Eddie, so everybody goes home happy. Yeah, I think, AJ was definitely the most over guy of the night. I think you got to give him credit. I think at the time, TNA was gaining traction, with the monthly pay-per-views. We're coming off of the Against All Odds Iron Man match. And then on top of that, it's AJ's return. AJ hadn't been with Ring of Honor since At Our Best, which is WrestleMania 20 weekend. So it was a huge return for AJ. It was a one-time only thing. Eventually, during the summertime, everything blew over, and AJ Styles and Christopher Daniels were allowed to wrestle. But at the time, they're slowly building up Punk and Jimmy, that feud, that dog collar match, and they're going to have a big blow-off match at Nowhere to Run. So they're slowly building that up. So it worked out well. Plants the seeds for AJ to get his revenge at Glory by Honor when everything kind of, worked its way out. So, but yeah, I got to say, fun show. I think this, more than any other show, I just think this has a lot of consistency and just a shitload of star power. And I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know if you find the Ring of Honor show with the Mount Rushmore on it. And when you combine it with AJ Styles, it's really the only time where you got this kind of level of talent on the show. And then you mix it up with James Gibson, resurrecting his career. I just think it's one of the better shows in ROH history in terms of talent. There's no doubt about it.